So I've managed to record videos where I go through every single piece of gear I own and tell you all about each thing and what it is. When I look at what other people do to talk about cycle tours, they tend to do a lot of that sort of stuff talking about gear, but when I went to think about putting it in the video, I felt quite strange about it, and the more I think about it, the more I realize that it's because I'm doing free advertising for all of these brands, and all of these different things that I've written in the past talk about how we need people to learn to enjoy bikepacking first with the things that they already have, rather than going out and trying to buy all the best stuff and then having all of these expectations that will never be met because of the way bikepacking is sold to us as being this like amazing, heroic adventure. So when I started bikepacking 5-6 years ago, I went with mostly just what I could get my hands on, cheap secondhand stuff. When I look at my stuff, I still think I probably have, to some people's opinion, worse stuff than a lot of people buy when they want to go bikepacking for the first time. And lots of my stuff has been refined and changed over the years, and I think that I believe quite strongly that people need to go through that process of understanding what they like. And when I've given people recommendations before, I've even felt a little bit of guilt, as if they go out and buy all this stuff and then don't enjoy it and don't use it, some of that wastefulness and some of that responsibility for me recommending them things and then them not enjoying it, I don't know, sometimes it bothers me. So instead, I've decided to talk more about the philosophical reasons for the things that I'm taking on my tour. Obviously, there are brands on these things. If you really care that much, you can figure out all the stuff that I have. But ultimately, I'm going to try to avoid talking about brands unless they're brands that I genuinely do like and support, rather than just spouting out brand names at you all the time. So there's a bunch of stuff that I've got laid out here. A bunch of the stuff that I have over time I've modified, sometimes just superficially so that I don't lose it and no one else picks it up thinking it's theirs. Things like the toolkit and the knife. But then there's also stuff that I've made myself, so I've modified some waterproof pants to be waterproof shorts, and then from that waterproof pants, this has ended up being my laptop bag made from the leg of the pants that I cut up. So I really hate wasting things. Then there's things like this. This is more just weight weenie stuff. Cutting the sleeping mat in half so that you can save a little bit of space. The most important thing is still here, but I'm not very tall and you don't need to insulate your entire body, mostly your upper body. So sometimes I do modifications like this as well. But yeah, so first thing to talk about is the sleeping system. Tried lots of different sleeping systems over different bikepacking trips, between bivvying and trying out a tarp setup, using a tent, and the option that I've gone for this trip is a tent, but I'm also carrying a bivvy. So the bivvy will be, it's an emergency bivvy, insulated. It's the sort of thing that most ultra bikepacking racers use. And I can use that inside my tent if it's really cold, because I'm only taking a 9-degree sleeping bag, which means that for some places where it's quite alpine, it's going to be not warm enough, and so I will need to supplement it with my emergency bivy and with a liner, which is important if you're traveling for a long time, because the oils from your body and dirt and whatnot can affect the warmth of the down, so you want to make sure that your down stays clean if you can. And then the other thing about my tent is that traditionally I've had more of like a one pole hiking tent, but this time I'm taking a tent that you can pitch freestanding as well, because you never know if maybe you have to pitch your tent on some concrete at some point. So I've gone with that just so that I have lots of options, because I don't really like having to stress about finding a camp spot. So bit of a weight sacrifice so that I can have that flexibility. So as far as technology goes, this is a big weight difference compared to what I usually take, because I need to take a video camera, I need to take the normal digital still camera that I would normally take with me, and I need to take a tablet which will help me to do my video editing and all of the things that I need to do. Since I'm gone for so long, it's not realistic to go without something more than your phone. So I have a tablet, and then I also have a power bank. So last ride I relied on just a dynamo, and that felt like a bit of a mistake. Dynamos are great, and I'm still going to run one, but I found that in some of the circumstances where you're going up a hill all day and then carefully picking your way down a steep mountain bike trail, you're not getting enough speed to have much charging happening during the day. And it just ended up being that I had to borrow one of the other riders' power banks just to get a little bit more juice to last me the 10 days that the ride was. Aside from that, I've got some camera things. So I've got ND filters to help make videos look a little bit better. I've got the microphone, which is attached to me right now. Some safety stuff, so always carry a personal locator beacon of some sort, just in case. Obviously, there's nothing better than just learning about the place that you're going and what the dangers are and trying to prevent anything bad happening, but it's just another tool in your kit to help you do that. Got some headphones just in case I need to do some editing in a place where it'd be rude to do it out loud. Heart rate monitor, mostly just out of interest. I don't really ride according to heart rate. I'm just gathering data for fun, really. Got my GPS, and then I've got a little solid state drive which I'll need for editing videos, because tablets just don't have that much processing power, and you're just going to run out of space really quickly if you're trying to edit video on a tablet with not much storage space. And then lastly, I've got a magic camera cloth, which I will use to wrap my video camera when it's not being used, and it doubles as a lens cleaner, which is really handy. Alright, so this is kind of a rough mess of tools, cooking equipment, and general hygiene stuff. So we'll do tools first, since that's nice and easy. At the moment, this is just one tube sitting here, but I think always take 2 tubes. If you're running tubeless, You know, you never know, you might get two really hectic punctures at the same time. I've got this Lasine kit, which basically has a bunch of bits in it, so you can mix and match the different bits that you need. My bike's got a few weird sized Torx bits, a T45 and a T20, so I ended up doing a bunch of research and figuring out that putting together my own toolkit was the best bet. That meant that I have to also bring a separate chain breaker because my toolkit isn't a multi-tool that has one on it. I've got a tubeless plugger, and I've got some pliers, just in case. These are fishing pliers that I've ground the ends off, and these have like nice little cutters, so if, say, you snapped a cable or cable frayed so much that it jammed, which did happen on the Hunt 1000, I lost my roll-off shifting for the last 75 Ks. Basically, you can heat your cable with a lighter and then use what would normally be a cutter that's not high enough quality for brake cable or shift cable to try to get a clean cut if you get in trouble, and that basically will get you out of trouble. I've got this valve core removal tool, which is actually mostly for particular types of butane gas fuel that you can recycle them by taking core that's basically the same as a valve core out of the can when it's finished, and I like recycling, so thrown in one of these. This has all my spares in it, so I've got emergency spoke, I've got brake pads, patches, spare bolts, all of the sorts of things that you need if you want to get out of trouble. Got a pump, of course. And the other weird thing that I have is a very cheap aluminium bottom bracket tool, because I've had a couple of catastrophic bottom bracket failures, and this thing weighs so little that I figure this means I have pretty much full coverage for any possible problems that I can have, and I can get myself out of trouble knowing how to fix it without having to spend a lot of money at a bike shop or something like that. And I will be carrying chain lube. I won't be carrying this particular chain lube. This one's just a prop. I'll be carrying a small one. So, titanium pot, of course, and stove, which I seem to have misplaced while I've been trying to move house, so just imagine a stove. We've got hand sanitizer, very important. Soap is better, and I will also carry soap, but you don't want to get soap in the waterways or anything like that, so sometimes a bit of hand sanitizer is a little bit better in some situations. We've got the water purifying stuff. I'm just using a inline filter. I used to use a UV filter, but the batteries eventually just gave up on living, so I'm using something that doesn't depend on batteries anymore. A little lighter for my stove. I might actually just take a normal lighter rather than one of these little clicky ones. This is quite heavy. And a little folding cup, just because if you're gone away for so long, you might as well be able to have instant coffee. Finally, I've got some cutlery, 2 bits of titanium folding cutlery. I used to run a double-ended spork that was, you know, one of these, but all things considered, I think it's just more hygienic to not constantly be handling something that you're also going to put in your mouth with your hands. So I'm either going to take both of these as is, or I'm going to take both of these but one handle and then just swap the handles if I need to. Haven't quite figured that out yet. Toothbrush. So on the topic of not touching things with your hands, a big believer in not cutting the end off your toothbrush. Honestly, your fingernails are one of the dirtiest parts of your body, and especially when you've been outside for a really long time, I'm not a huge fan of, starting the risk of having your fingers in your mouth or almost in your mouth all the time. It's just not as hygienic for what tiny weight saving it would be for me to cut the end off of this. I've got a first aid kit, which I have just updated the bag. My old first aid kit was totally thrashed. I've got a little shaver because as testosterone continues to do its work on my body, my facial hair is starting to come in quite fast, and I'd like to keep it under control. I'm still trying to figure out whether I'm going to take it with the battery inside or whether I'm going to go ultralight and leave the battery at home and then just borrow batteries along the way. Still going to figure that out. And yeah, a towel. Just a little one. It's not really going to, keep you covered or anything, but everybody needs a towel. And I think that's everything. One last thing might be this knife. Always good to have a knife. I have a few knives, so it's been hard to figure out which one I'm going to take, but I think the wood-handled one is just a little bit lighter than the other ones. Alright, so my clothes look like a mess, but here are all the clothes that I'm taking. So basically, you always want 2 sets of clothes, at least, just in case they get wet, plus when you're in places where there's bears, for example, you can't sleep in the clothes that you've cooked in. You need to put them in the beer box or in a beer can or hang them or something like that, because your clothes will smell like a delicious snack. So I've got a mix of polyester and merino. As much as I hate things being made of plastic, I used a lot of merino, and for some things I find that it just wears holes through it so quickly that I feel like all of the environmental savings I'm making are wasted because I'm just shredding things like leggings and ending up having to throw them away. So basically, for extra warmth, I've got one down jacket. We've got a merino long sleeve, which hopefully will last me the whole trip. This is going to be my main riding shirt. I've got a balaclava made of merino as well, which is, instead of having a beanie and a buff, I've decided to go just with a balaclava, seeing that lots of other ultra races were doing the same thing. 2 pairs of socks. One pair I'm currently wearing, also merino. I've got rain gear, so one rain jacket and my custom-made rain shorts. I find that I wear through rain pants really quickly, so I've decided to try making some that are of slightly more sturdy material. I think they look a bit silly, but in the grand scheme of things, I don't think people are looking at you while you bike in the rain and thinking about how good you look anyway. I think most people just look at you and think, wow, that looks like a terrible time. So that's the rain gear. I've got some different pairs of cycling shorts, so some of them are padded, and some have no padding. I guess lots of people, once you get to world touring, you don't really wear padded shorts because there's a risk of infections and all of those sorts of things. My line of thought is each approach has their pros and cons. Each of them are going to hurt you in different ways, so rotate between both of them and try to get some variation in your bike shorts. Then finally, these are more like my sleeping layers or around town layers, the layers that I try not to get all dirty with food and whatnot. And these are Polartec, basically a type of fleece that's really light but really warm and really breathable. And similarly, I'm hoping these last me the whole trip. I haven't had this for very long, and it's already kind of covered in bikepacking stains and whatnot, so that's why my main clothes are not bright coloured. I don't really like how dirty and horrible they look after, just a couple of uses for me. I'm just a destroyer of clothes, and it's not worth it. My bike is colourful enough that I don't feel like I need to have also a bunch of clothes that make me look like a Christmas tree. And finally, this is all the random stuff that I didn't really put in a category. So we've got a pen. I probably won't take this pen, but some airports don't actually have pens anymore, and you get called out when you come into the country and need to fill out your declaration forms. I also need to gather signatures of people saying they've seen me on my travels as I go, so probably also some paper to go with this pen. Got a U-lock. This is a bit of a pain to carry around. Also not something that I normally take bikepacking, but I figure there's just going to be so many places that I need to go, and when your entire life and your house is just sitting outside waiting to be taken, that's probably not a good idea. Though I guess, generally speaking about security, you don't really leave your bike outside for too long anyway, because unless you're willing to take everything out of your bags or take your bags off, you're still leaving, so much stuff outside that could get taken. So it's going to be a mix of using this lock, but also potentially not leaving the bike outside for too long. I've got my prescription medication. I'm still trying to figure out how best to carry this to make sure that it doesn't get damaged along the way. Sunscreen, very important, especially if you have lots of cool, expensive tattoos. Sunburn is not good. Of course, passport, travel documents are important. This one has seen better days. It's actually my cancelled one. I'm just waiting for my new passport to come through because this one got a bit too water damaged on my last bikepacking trip, and that's all fine and good to get between New Zealand and Australia, where all you do is scan the cover of your passport, but once I start getting into other countries, I don't think they're going to like the state of my passport very much, so going with a brand new one that doesn't have any damage on it. I've got some sunglasses, and I've got a ultralight backpack. So when I do need to go into shops, go on airplanes, or anything else, really good to actually have a bag that you can put stuff in so that you can get stuff, and then if you're going short distances from a shop to a campsite or something like that, you can put food in there as well, because the reality is that For a trip this long, you really do have to do a lot of cooking and be frugal and camp, because unless you're made of money, you're gonna run out of money pretty quickly trying to rely on finding accommodation and stuff like that. So the only thing left to talk about now is my actual bike. So this one is steel. It's got the right geometry for someone who is a bit of an odd size like me. So I need a bike that suits someone with quite long legs and short arms. So we've got a big middle triangle and handlebars that come back really close. Got one of those analog cycles, 0mm stems, and I really rate them for actually having the conversation about how bike fitting doesn't really work for everybody, and certainly something I've found is that it was really hard for me to get into bikes at the start when I first wanted to get a bike, because I thought, oh, I'm small, I must need a small bike. But actually, as far as bike fitting's concerned, I'm small this way and I'm 2XS this way. So for a while I got into frame building because most bikes just didn't really fit me at all. But for a trip this long, I don't trust my frame building skills. It's just too expensive. I haven't made that many bike frames, and I think it's just safer to get a bike from a business that makes heaps of bikes and makes them so that they can't explode when you're halfway around the world. So my ethos for a bike like this is that you want it to be durable enough to be fun. I don't really like worrying about having fancy light parts on my bike or fancy drivetrains that my bike's going to fall over and something's going to bend or something's going to snap, and then I'm going to have to do all this work to find the replacement parts and stuff like that. So sticking with a steel bike and a roll-off drivetrain, and that way not many things can go wrong. In saying that, I have had things go wrong with roll-offs before, but I've had things go wrong with every brand's drivetrain. I've destroyed Shimano, I've destroyed SRAM, I've destroyed Microshift, and I've destroyed a roll-off. So I guess in the grand scheme of things, if you ride enough, anything can break, and really all you can do is try to treat it with care and try to choose the right drivetrain for you. With this one, it's got sliding dropouts, so it can be run single speed or geared, which I think is going to be really good. So if anything bad actually does happen, I can pretty much replace the back wheel with any wheel if I really have to. And then most of the things on the bike are generally pretty durable and trusted things. So this is 650B. It had to be 650B because the bigger wheel size, as much as I would have loved to be 700C, is just a little bit too big to fit on a frame of my size. We've got a bunch of bags. So this is my original Roadrunner pannier bags, and after I did some bikepacking with these, Roadrunner asked me to write an article for them, and they very generously overpaid me in bags. So yeah, that's the one brand that I am talking about in this video, because I think they're really nice and they genuinely do want to help people who are from marginalised groups and in cycling, and I really rate that. So these two are newer bags from Roadrunner that I haven't gotten as dirty and gross as my original bag yet, but I imagine it'll just be a matter of time, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think when your bags look nice and dirty, then, it's just less likely that people are going to try to steal your bike. I've also got this frame bag made by my friend Amy, who makes bags under the name Paper Roads here in Aotearoa. It's got 2 compartments so that you can put all your heavy stuff in the middle of the frame to help with the weight distribution. So generally speaking, all of the tools and stuff will end up in the middle of the frame. I'll have room for 2 bottles on the sides of my frame. I actually had to change my pedals because the original pedals were a bit narrower, but I kept hitting my knees on the bottles, so I've increased the Q factor of my frame a little bit just by having these massive pedals. Aside from that, I've got a waterproof bag on the front, which is where anything that's a bit more sensitive to water is going to go. I've got a USB charger from the dynamo, and I don't actually even know what's going to go in this bag yet. That's just for extra random stuff that I might pick up during the day. And I guess moving to the handlebar decision making and the saddle. Obviously you want a leather saddle for comfort, but I know I need to be careful about getting it wet, so I might add a saddle cover. I might make a saddle cover if I have enough time. I've got some really shallow drop bars. Even then I'm kind of wondering if this position is a little bit too aggressive for what I'm trying to do, but it's a little bit too late now. The steer has been cut, so I'm just going to hope for the best. Handlebar's been modified to take a roll-off shifter, and I've got my aero bars to help save my wrists when I'm on some long, boring sections of road. Those work pretty well for me, so they're coming with me, even though they make it a little bit annoying to get into the bag. I've always found that a bit of a pain with aero bars, but it's much lighter than also having a rack on the front, as well as having a full steel rack on the back of my bike as well, and things start to get pretty heavy. Then finally, I've got my fork cages, which will be taking big Nalgene's. As much as the soft bags are cool for water, I think that you really can't go wrong with an Nalgene. Easy to clean. They're pretty much indestructible. As you can tell, these ones have had quite a bit of destruction already. Some of them are permanently stained with dirt, so hopefully biosecurity isn't too worried about that, because I've cleaned these about 1 million times and they just are this colour now. Then finally, wide but slick tyres, just for the right mix of comfort and speed. So this is already fairly luxurious compared to what most people choose for cycling around the world. I think all the people that are trying for speed records are using road bikes, but I really fancy the luxury of being able to go on gravel roads and dirt roads and not have to tangle with cars, because I don't have anyone supporting me, and I think it'll just be horribly dull and boring to ride down the roads, and I don't know if I'll have the means to go back to a lot of these places again, so I'd rather be able to take the cool roads on big tyres than be stuck on a road bike.